Hi, Trevor here, reflecting on life through music. Thank you for stopping by. Well, I trust you enjoyed my last video from the UK band The Clash, and through their song London Calling, which came off that iconic album of the same name. We looked at sometimes it takes art, and in their case music, to make a statement to the world. So I trust you found that one encouraging. In fact, I can remember a song a few months ago by Berlin called Like Flames, similar sort of thing about movements and that sort of stuff. So I trust you found that one encouraging. And yeah, it's under B in my playlist, like, you know, The Clash is under C. So there we go. Well, we're going on to a super group of the 1970s today. Now, I'm just going to say the names at the start. We had David Crosby of The Byrds. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, that sort of thing. Stephen Stills, Buffalo Springfield. Graham Nash from the iconic The Hollies in the UK. He's not heavy, he's my brother. And then later in 1969, Neil Young joined, and this supergroup, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, were formed. Crosby, Stills and Nash as well. I suppose what I'm doing, I'm just talking about this trio slash four-piece slash solo artists today. They were formed in 1968, and in 1969 they were signed to Atlantic Records. Of course, they were going to get signed, given the pedigree these four have come from. It wasn't going to it'd be long before they actually got picked up. Very much in the folk rock kind of genre. The thing that makes Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, or CSNY, as they're also known, is their incredible harmonies, incredible songwriting, incredible musicianship, just incredible everything, really. It does not get much better than these guys. They are absolute legends in the music industry. In fact, each of them have been inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in their own right, either in collaborations, and actually Crosby, Stills and Nash have also been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as well. Certainly around that late 1960s, Woodstock had happened, and that was an absolutely massive thing for the world, that particular concert. And these guys, certainly after Bob Dylan had taken a bit of a break and the Beatles were starting to wind down a little bit, these guys very much were the countercultural figureheads of the world. In fact, they were dubbed the American Beatles. It doesn't get much bigger than that. And of course, in a long line of iconic harmony bands, including bands like the Eagles, Bee Gees, a few others like that, these guys are pretty well up there as one of the best ever when it comes to vocal delivery. Between 1969 and 2008, so how long is that career? By the way, 8 studio albums. So every time a studio came out from either CSNY or CSN, it was a major release, and the world absolutely responded to these guys. 8 studio albums, 5 live albums, so there's something there. Goes that these guys can actually perform live really, really well. All you need is just them, their voice and their guitars, and pretty well that's all you need. 6 compilation albums, 4 video albums, 7 music videos and 19 singles. It's estimated between CSN and CSNY, and in their solo careers as well, about 70 million albums. That's pretty significant in the scheme of things. So these guys come from an era where they were making commentary about things. They hit the ground running as far as writing songs that the world needed to hear. Very much coming from a stable of iconic bands, the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, the Hollies, absolutely iconic bands, and, you know, super groups in their own rights, each one of those. They just had a way about them. Because they had this iconicness about them, they actually they already had the worldwide voice. And when you bring 4 worldwide voices together like these guys, it creates an absolutely compelling force of nature. Rock and roll royalty, that is for sure. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, what can we say? You know, absolutely insurmountable, the influence these guys have had in the world of music. not just in the bands they were in, not just individually as well, but also as a trio and then a bunch of four guys. Absolutely insurmountable with the amount of influence these guys have actually had. Of course, when you just get the vocal delivery and harmonies these guys have actually got, it's just absolutely amazing to see how incredibly talented human beings can be. And when you collaborate together, across the Atlantic, we had Graham in the UK and the others are in the US. Cross collaboration is also a pretty beautiful thing. And just to know around that time too, the Beatles doing their things, the Bee Gees, we had the Beach Boys. It's just a rich time of music, and it was around that late 1960s. Other bands were starting to form, like the Led Zeppelin and the Who, and of course the Rolling Stones have been going for a while. But this is very much capitalising on the folk rock genre that Bob Dylan had started, and he had really and truly created history with some of his songs. And in that iconic concert where he dropped the acoustic guitar and brought an electric guitar, music changed forever in that particular concert. These guys, just through the way they are, all they have to do is just come onto stage. It's really hard to put into words sometimes the influence of these guys. You just have to come onto stage with their guitars in their hands. The minute they do that, they've got the crowd in the palm of their hands. The minute they open their voice, it just steps it up just a few notches. So absolute legends in the world of music, these guys. So when it comes to Crosby, Still, Nash and Young, or CSNY, get my letters in the right way there, or CSN, there's so many songs you can look at. But I thought the song that I probably recognise the most from these guys is Teach Your Children Well. This came off the album Deja Vu, which is considered a classic. Teach your children well. Well, the words are pretty clear here. Bearing in mind also that we had a countercultural shift in the late 1960s, and so it's just not the normal kind of thing like, look, children seen and not heard. They're well and truly seen and heard. They're well and truly part of the families and part of the family unit. We have children. Why do we have them? We have them because they bring joy to our lives. We see our life, our legacy continuing through them. And we had the chance, even from the time of actually naming them, what an incredible privilege that is, to seeing them develop and grow as human beings till one day they're going to leave us and find a life of their own. Of course, that's our role of parents, is to do ourselves out of a job. But it's not just teach your children like well. It's like, what does well mean? Well, we're going to hope they're going to be courteous and kind and generous kind of people. That those sort of values we kind of really hope will be there. But it goes more than that. Because, as we know, and videos that I've done in the last few times too, life doesn't always go well. And so how do we teach our children to deal with those moments? How do we deal with children to deal with broken hearts? How do we teach children to rise above the tragedies that come? That death is part of life as well. How do we teach our children to deal with that sort of stuff? How do we teach our children to be risk takers, to be entrepreneurial, to grab life by the scruff of the neck and give it a bit of a shake? It's certainly what these four guys have done through their music career, because 1969, 2008, they've had to reinvent themselves a few times, that is for sure. How do we teach rounded children, the children that can be kind and compassionate? Driving on the road, how do we teach kids to be courteous to other road users? How do we tell children to balance their money, the difference between needing the money that we need to live, but also being generous, we've got a bit left over? When there isn't quite so much money, how do we teach children to deal with that? There's just so much to teach our children. And to teach them well, as this song actually proposes, is quite an amazing thing, because we might be thinking, well, I don't do this stuff well myself, so how can I teach? But the advantage that we've got with being parents is we can look at the legacy we've brought. We think of how we were brought up and think, well, that wasn't so good perhaps. How can we break that cycle to bring creativity into the new generations? One thing that comes to mind, when I was a chaplain in a primary school and there were 35 cultures in the school, I saw kids just getting on with each other. It didn't matter which culture they were part of. Everyone just kind of realised that, we're all different, but that difference that makes us strength. How can we breed that kind of resilience, that cultural competence into the next generation so culture doesn't really matter? In fact, in a lot of ways, when you see the photos of, the different cultures in the photo, I think, well, that's still in a sense segregating culture a little bit. We're just all the same. We're just all people. We have arms and legs and blood pumping through our veins. So how can we get our children, how can our children just to realise people are just people? And the cultures that they have kind of come second, because we all want to be heard. We all want to be understood. We all want to be listened to. We all want to belong and feel part of something. And it doesn't matter what culture we're part of. We all want that. So how can we teach our children well in that as well? Of course, schools try their darndest to do this sort of thing, Harmony Day, everything they're trying to do to understand our differences. But it's our differences, we hold difference very, very lightly, because it's more about the strength we have being together. I mean, Australia is such a richer culture because of the food that comes in here. Used to be just meat and veg when I was growing up, but now we've got Chinese, Asian, Thai, Indian, and any other African food, Middle Eastern food. Our lives are so much richer because of all this food and the way we cook food and the different ways we cook it. The Italians with pizza and pasta, just the whole thing. It makes us a very rich culture indeed. So how do we teach your children well? They're your children, by the way. No, they're yours. They're yours until they're 18 or 16, or whatever age children become adults, or whatever age the rite of passage things occur. They're your children. So how can you teach them well? Could be you might need to be completely different to how you were taught, thinking, I didn't really quite cut it really. What can I do to teach my children well? So trust you found that all a little bit of an encouragement today, and just add in there these 4 iconic musos and just really brings it alive even more. So onto the clips and their live versions today, all of these songs today. We do have Teach Your Children Well of the 1970 album Deja Vu. It's the CSNY release, and in this live version from 1988, I think that might be Tracy Chapman in there. I'm guessing it looks a little bit like her. Of course, her voice just adds any richness to any recording. So we've got a live version of that one. We then got Carry On from the 1980 album Replay, I should say. This is also from the CSNY. This is a live version from 2000. So that's pretty cool. We then got the song Southern Cross, and of course from the 1982 release Daylight Again, another significant album from these guys. And very much, Australia, the Southern Cross is a very poignant part of our night sky. So it's kind of good to see this is what the Southern Cross represents as a bit of a cultural icon in Australia and the Southern Hemisphere. We then got Just a Song Before I Go. This is a CSN release from 1977. Very much, again, we just get to see how great these guys are on stage. They're just effortless with the way these guys sing, all playing their guitars, of course, and just bringing the crowd along for a ride. This is the incredible thing about Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, or Crosby, Stills and Nash, or David Crosby in his own right, Stephen Stills in his own right, Graham Nash in his own right, and Neil Young in his own right. These guys are all still around, which is pretty amazing. And it's good to see that, the world has absolutely resonated with the wholesomeness of these guys, just the incredible musicianship, incredible harmonies, incredible everything really. And then if you guys are watching, or any of your team are watching, there's just a little guy in Adelaide, reaching out to you guys and saying, well done, thank you for the incredible musical legacy you've brought to this world, and this is my tribute to you guys today. So the links to those, how many? 1, 2, 4 songs are in the description below. And I've also included my last video from The Clash. So if you want to recap on them, around that, just a decade later, and I reckon these guys probably influenced The Clash as well, along with guys like Buddy Holly and a few others. So there are videos there for you to recap on if you want to. So feel free for that one. Well, we're going from there to just a little bit different next time, into this kind of new wave synth pop, synth rock category, and that is Depeche Mode. You can't do a series like this one and not look at these guys, and so that's where we're going next time. So until then, I'll catch you around. Bye for now.